So, good morning, my honorable lecturer and my friends. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Putu Wiguna. My registration number is 17120211183, and I'm from 7F class. I'm studying in English Language Education from Ganesha University of Education. So, today I want to deliver the topic about English for negotiation. There are four subtopics, namely, first one is bargaining, then the second one is handling conflict and resolving sticking points, the third is closing negotiations, and the last is negotiating. So without any further ado, let's start the presentations. Start from the bargaining. So, what is bargaining? Bargaining is a simple form of distributive negotiation process that is both competitive and positional. So the meaning of bargaining doesn't seek to create a value, but instead focuses on the negotiators claiming value. At the bargaining stage, the acceptance of offers is related to the conditions. So there are some subtopics that we do in the bargaining. The first one is restating positions. So according to JETIC 2016, positional bargaining is a negotiation strategy that involves holding on to a fixed idea or positions of what you want. So you are arguing for it and it alone, regardless of any underlying interest. The classic examples of positional bargaining is the haggling that takes place between proprietor and customer over the price of an item. So the example of the expression is, let me just clarify our basic positions. Perhaps I should reiterate our objective here. Can I just stress that? Blah blah blah. So, why is positional bargaining is important? Positional bargaining tends to be the first strategy people adopt when entering in negotiations. This is often problematic because as the negotiation advances, the negotiators become more and more committed to their positions, continually restoring and defending them. So, the second one is setting conditions. There are some expression in setting conditions. There are we might be willing to, that's acceptable, we can agree to, that's fine, we could offer you, and we might consider. And it can be followed by if, provided that, on condition that, so long as, providing, with the purpose of that, and when. The third is responding in the bargaining phase. The first one is accepting. This is when we accept the offers from the negotiators. So the expressions are that is acceptable. Okay, we can agree to that. I think we could go along with that now. And then the next one is refuse with the new offer. So it is happens because we do not agree with the offer. And then the expressions are we couldn't agree to that, but we could. That will be difficult. However, would you consider? I'm afraid it is not acceptable, but why not? And then the third one is accept with conditions. So we accept the agreement, but with the reasons. The expressions are that's fine if you blah blah blah, then we have a deal. Provided that you blah blah blah, then we can agree. And then rejecting. It happened because we reject the offers because something. The expressions are I'm afraid that we don't meet our requirements. Even with this offer, we couldn't accept. And then despite blah blah blah, we can agree to this. And the last is authority problems. The expressions are I'm afraid I don't have the authority to give approval on that. I'll have to get back to you on that. I would need to revert back on that. So the next subtopic is handling conflict and resolving the sticking points. So most negotiations will encounter difficult problems. There is a much greater chance that solutions will be found if both parties keep sight of the main objective and maintain a positive here. Causes of conflict are unrealistic demand, personality differences, poor communications, misunderstanding, failure to appreciate cultural difference, and the lack of commitment. So, that's what we do in handling conflict and resolving sticking points are. First one is always strive the positive. The example is we say, I think we should look again at we have agreement. I think we should take a quick look at what I have achieved so far, and then so on. You can read on the slide. And then second one is identifying obstacles. So obstacles is the main reasons that the conflict happened, and the expression that are the major obstacle at the moment seems to be, and the second one is the main sticking point here is, and so on. So the third one is creating a solutions. So after you identifying the obstacles, you may see the solutions that the conflict happened, and the expressions are, I think we both need to give a little ground here. What do you think if it's reasonable solutions? And then so on. And the fourth one is reassuring. The expressions are, let me reassure you that. Let me put your mind at rest about. And then don't worry about. And the fifth is postponing. The expressions are, I think it would be a good idea to come back these letters. Then perhaps we should adjourn to reconsider, and so on. The sixth is asking and showing understanding. So, to resolve the problems, you must show your understanding about the conflict. And the depiction are, I hope you can appreciate our difficulties with this. And then I realize that it's difficult. And the last is, I fully understand. The seventh is threatening. Threatening happens because someone threatened or something threatened you. The expressions are, if you are unable to move on this, we will have to blah blah blah. I'm afraid we have to call it a day on this. And the next is, if you can offer us something, we'll have to look elsewhere. And the last is terminate the negotiations. If the conflict can resolve, if you cannot solve the conflict, you will terminate the negotiations to end this. And the expressions are, I think we have gone as far as we can today. And then I'm afraid that we are not going to reach the agreement today. And last is, I think we should both seriously reconsider our positions. So let's move to the next subtopic. It's closing negotiations. The first one is closing signal. We give a signals if we want to closing the negotiations. The expressions are, okay, perhaps we should stop at this point. So that brings us to the end of blah blah blah. That's your negotiations. And then, right, I think that covers everything for today. And then the progress made. And then you share your progress that related to your negotiations. And the expressions are, we have made some good or excellent progress. And then we've taken a step in the right directions. And then we didn't get as far as we hoped that, blah blah blah. And the third is summarize. After you share your progress, and then summarize your negotiation results. So the expressions are, can I just run over the main points? And let's go over the main points again. The fourth is refuse areas of agreements. So the expressions are, on the front, blah 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 front, we agreed. As far as blah 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 is concerned, we agreed, blah blah blah. And then we have agreed to the following. So after that, you have to state unresolved areas. The expressions are, there are still the questions of blah 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 to resolve. Then outstanding issues are, we can tie up the loose ends at the later date. And then the sixth is checking and reconfirming. So this is reconfirming the negotiations to make it clear. So the expressions are, do you agree with that? And does they reflect what we said? And then the last is that an accurate summary? 7 is actions for the futures. The expressions are, we'll review this again in 6 months. Would you like that in writing? And then you can read it this the another example in the slide. The 8th is next meeting. So if we have another negotiation so we can talk more, you can ask to another meeting to discuss the negotiation again. Then the expressions are, could you make blah blah blah, and then should we say 4 o'clock, does that should you, and I suggest you we meet at the same time next week. And then the positive close, in closing the negotiations, we have to share our positive vibes to close the negotiations. The expressions are, I think we have both got a good deal. It remains for me to thank you for coming and blah blah blah. And then that was a very positive start. And the last subtopic is negotiations. In opening negotiations, those are the steps of opening negotiations. First is welcoming to the negotiators. The expressions are welcome to blah blah blah. It's good to see you. Then I think you have met the boss maybe, and then the head of negotiators, and then ask about his trip or her trip, and then can I get something to drink, and then ask him if they need something, and then you ask them, can we start the negotiations right now? And then the next is, to begin, we should agree on an agenda. And you can suggest that that's something that you want to input in the negotiations. And then the next is just to clarify rules. It is the same as the restating positions. And the next is, as for the length of meeting, I hope we can finish by blah blah blah. And the last is, if you have nothing to add, we can move on to the outlining our positions. And the second is first move. The steps is you share the main objectives of the meeting. And then the last is, to begin, I would like to review the background of for today. You share the background of the negotiations. And then, okay, let me now turn to our objective today in more detail. So you share the objective in more detail and to make it clear. And then just interrupt me if you want to clarify anything. And then you can ask the negotiators if the negotiators want to clarify something. And the next is, basically we would like to blah blah blah. Is it essential for you us to blah blah blah? Furthermore, blah 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 in additions if you want to add something. And then how does that sound? Any questions? You ask the negotiators opinions about that. And then the last is, okay, can we now hear from your side? So in these steps, you ask the negotiators to share their opinions about the negotiation. The third is questions. Those are the example of the questions in negotiations. First one is, could we just clarify one thing? And then, how important to you is the negotiation that is? And so, if you understand you correctly, you would like to. So, in bargaining, there are some expressions that I state in this slide. The first one is we propose to, that is the negotiations, and then we will be willing to blah 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 if, and then the next is that is out of the questions, and then what do you think is reasonable, and the last is we can agree to that. So the fifth point is agreement and close. So this happens if we accept the agreements in negotiations. So the step is, I think we have a deal. Can I just run over the main points of the agreement? And then we have agreed to blah blah blah. We will blah 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 at a later date. And then is it correct? Do you agree? So in the fourth point, the negotiations are reconfirmed about the negotiation. And then the next is, okay, we can draw up the contract next week. It just remains for me to say thank you for coming. And the next is, I think we'll have a good deal and the best is for long relationships. And the eighth point is, I look forward to our next meeting. And the last is, for now we can finish here. So you can close the negotiations if they accept the agreement. So that's all about the material about the English for negotiation. And thank you for your attentions and goodbye.